Were collectible trading cards of video game developers ever a thing, the prize of my collection would be Suda51, also known as Goichi Suda. I'm a big fan of the guy because he brings a punk-like sensibility to video games, infusing his projects with a wild mishmash of different gameplay styles and visual mediums that end up looking as chaotic as a denim jacket covered in safety-pinned patches. Suda51's games can be a challenge, and they typically don't capture high mainstream attention. However, like most multimedia artists, there's a captivating allure to his eschewed and offbeat approach to game design. Killer 7 featured a brazen limited control scheme, Lollipop Chainsaw reveled in its cartoonish sensibilities and madcap level design, and it took almost a half a year to get Akira Yamaoka's Sushi Lamp music from Shadows of the Damned out of my head. I was ecstatic after this year's Nintendo E3 Direct announcement of No More Heroes 3, the third in a series of goofy brawlers starring Travis Touchdown, a degenerate otaku that fought assassins with a lightsaber, a beam katana, he bought off the internet. While Grasshopper Manufacture works on re-releasing the first two games on the current platforms, which is so exciting, Travis returns after a 9-year absence with Travis Strikes Again, an off-kilter side adventure which is such a departure from franchise norms that it's both jarring and unsettling, and not in a good way. One of the very few things I like about the game is the self-referential sense of humor that addresses Suda51's career as well as the medium. Travis Strikes Again and the previous No More Heroes by extension share the same universe as Killer 7, a truth made evident by the appearance of Sam Smith, of that Smith Syndicate, who tracks down Badman, a character in a Killer 7 side story called Killer is Dead, and threatens violence. Instead of killing him, Sam gives Badman a death ball, and the whereabouts of Travis Touchdown, who is holed up in a backwards trailer playing video games all day. Badman seeks revenge against Travis for killing his daughter Charlotte, the bat-wielding psycho bad girl from the first No More Heroes, and is almost successful were it not for the older Travis still being at the top of his beam saber game. Just as the two men square up for a fight to the death, Badman's death ball activates Travis's Death Drive Mark II, an old video game console that was taken off the market for reasons that faded into urban legend. Trapped inside the machine under the auspices of Dr. Juvenile and console AI's Death and Drive, Travis and Badman get caught up in an adventure that sees them collecting all 6 Death Ball games in exchange for a single wish. What the hell did I just say? Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes is a video game about video games, a love letter to a hobby that has delighted and inspired many since Pong hit the streets. The fake titles Travis and Badman endure are amusing recreations of the fun, if slightly crappy games of yesteryear. Each of them opens with a delightfully vintage splash logo for the Death Drive console, followed by effective cutscenes that appear old and low budget by design. The vintagey feel of these games extends to an in-game archive that collects magazine articles covering one of the 6 games, presented in a style reminiscent of GamePro, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Nintendo Power. Be still my heart. Where No More Heroes offered a singular, satirized view of the world, Travis Strikes Again feels more grounded because of its strong solidarity towards independent developers in the form of collectible t-shirts bearing the logos for games like The Messenger, Dropsy the Clown, Hotline Miami, How to Full Boyfriend, and many more. Fostering goodwill with other developers is neat, but this particular love fest can't hide the truth that Travis Strikes Again is distressingly unfun. The story isn't so much the problem, though it doesn't help its case. Badman and Travis are on a quest to find the 6 death balls that make up the entire library of the Death Drive Mark II, and that search is presented through low-bit visual novel sequences that detail Travis's exploits and banter with people who own the games, and that of his talking cat, Gene. Once the game has been found, Travis heads back to his trailer where he and Badman, if you're playing with another player, must play through the game, conquering various obstacles, puzzles, and enemies to reach the end boss, stopping occasionally for a round of ramen or to take in the off-kilter wisdom of a wizened specter who pops in from time to time. Such interstitial materials is fine in the grand scheme of things because they're silly and irreverent. It's the Death Ball games themselves that make Travis Strikes Again feel like an absolute chore. Simply stated, the Deathball games lack imagination and are not fun by any significant measure. The games featured in the collection fall within the spectrum between tedious to embarrassingly bad. Life is Destroy, a game about a killer of serial killers, completely overstays its welcome through puzzles that are as easy as they are unnecessary, each ending in a short half-baked hallway crawl that leaves little to the imagination. Coffee and Donuts, though, was the one that broke me, hiding bland side-scrolling platforming levels behind needless barriers that force you to explore a space that can't justify the amount of effort it asks for. Suffering through these lame games feels like one of those situations where the joke is to point out how bad old games were by intentionally making bad games. I could easily spend the next 5 minutes reading you a list of terrific Sega and Nintendo games that found ways to use limited hardware tech to their advantage and make really cool stuff that are still fun to play in 2019. The way I see it, the problem with these titles is twofold. The level design sucks, and so does the combat. Moving away from the sword and wrestling combat is an arcade-like system that favors a light and heavy attack option. The beam katana operates the same way, delivering a barrage of attacks that last until its battery drains, forcing you to pull back from combat and manipulate the analog sticks to recharge. It's effective, but nowhere near as fun as those frantic moments spent praying that a parent or significant other doesn't walk in and catch you making jerking off gestures with the Wiimote. Replacing the wrestling moves are a consignment of chips that add special abilities to face buttons of your choosing. Controlled by cooldown timers, these chips allow you to shoot lightning, trap an enemy and toss them across the room, create a healing aura, and even slow time. These tools are certainly helpful during those moments when you find yourself mobbed by half a dozen enemies at once, but I miss hearing Travis scream out his moves like blueberry cheese brownie and cranberry chocolate sundae. Also, for a game that lets you play as one of two characters, there's really nothing to differentiate Travis and Badman beyond a palette swap. They move, run, swing their beam katanas the same way, leaving no incentive to ever spend the experience points to upgrade their stats. You might find fun playing with a friend, but even still, this game asks a lot. Suffer through the Deathball game long enough and you'll run up against its end boss that has to be defeated in order for Travis and Badman to escape. These encounters are certainly more imaginative than any other part of the games, but fail to reach the absurd heights of those featured in No More Heroes and No More Heroes 2. When the fight is over, the characters are sent back to the real world, where they can either trigger the next visual novel sequence and find a new Deathball, glance at the video game archives, or purchase a t-shirt. Money, though, is pointless, especially the premium Aztec currency, because it's only used for shirts that you can barely see in-game because the camera is almost always positioned in a way that's ill-suited to showing off new threads. Once the shopping is done, it's time to hop onto Travis's bike and do this whole thing all over again. Suda51 is nothing if not subtle. His games always feel outrageous and over the top in ways that can be difficult to hold on to some measure of appeal. I love his stuff solely because I can never expect what he's gonna do. Travis Strikes Again was a huge disappointment because it doesn't have the same high energy or memorable experience of its predecessors. I do like all the weird mixed media stuff going on, but if you strip the presentation away, there really isn't anything left worth sticking around for. DarkStation gives Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes for the PlayStation 4 3 out of 5 stars.